On the afternoon of November 24th, 1971, a man stepped onto a commercial airplane at Portland International Airport. He wore a dark suit, a white shirt, a thin black tie. He carried a briefcase. To everyone around him, he looked ordinary, forgettable. Just another passenger traveling for Thanksgiving. His ticket read, Dan Cooper. No one on that plane knew it yet, but before the night was over, this man would hijack the aircraft, extort the United States government, leap into a violent storm from 10,000 feet, and disappear forever. No body was ever found, no confession was ever made, no identity was ever confirmed. This is not a story about who D.B. Cooper was. This is the story of how a man defeated the system and vanished into legend. November 24th, 1971, the day before Thanksgiving. Portland International Airport was busy. Families were traveling. Business travelers were rushing to catch flights home. The terminals were filled with the sounds of announcements, footsteps, and suitcases rolling across tile floors. At approximately 2:50 p.m., a man approached the Northwest Orient Airlines ticket counter. He paid cash for a one-way ticket to Seattle, $18.52. The name on the ticket, Dan Cooper. He checked no luggage. He carried only a black briefcase and wore dark sunglasses even though it was overcast outside. The ticket agent barely looked at him. Years later, she would struggle to remember his face. He was that unremarkable. But here's what we know about what he looked like, based on witness accounts. Mid-40s, around 6 feet tall, 170 to 180 pounds, dark hair, possibly brown or black, olive complexion, no distinguishing marks, clean-shaven. He wore a business suit, a white-collared shirt, a narrow black tie with a pearl tie clip, and loafers. He blended in perfectly, and that was intentional. Flight 3:05. The hijacking begins, Northwest Orient. Flight 305 was a Boeing 727. It was a short flight, Portland to Seattle, 36 passengers, 6 crew members. Departure time, 2:50 p.m. Dan Cooper boarded and took a seat in the last row, 18E window seat. Rear of the cabin, close to the exit. As the plane taxied, he ordered a drink, bourbon and soda. He paid in cash. He lit a Raleigh filter cigarette. He was calm, polite. He tipped the flight attendant. Florence Schaffner, a young flight attendant, worked the cabin that day. She would later say Cooper seemed like just another businessman. Maybe a little quiet, maybe a little nervous, but nothing unusual. Shortly after takeoff, Cooper gestured to her. He handed her a folded note. Florence assumed it was a passenger hitting on her. It happened all the time. She slipped the note into her pocket without reading it. Cooper leaned closer. "Miss," he said quietly, "you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." Florence unfolded the paper. Her face went pale. The note was handwritten in felt-tip pen. It said, "I have a bomb in my briefcase. I will use it if necessary. I want you to sit next to me. You are being hijacked." Cooper opened his briefcase just enough for her to see inside. Wires, red cylinders, a battery. Florence sat down next to him. Cooper was calm, almost apologetic. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't threaten her. He gave her a new note. This one had his demands: $200,000 in $20 bills, 4 parachutes, 2 primary chutes and 2 reserve chutes, a fuel truck standing by in Seattle to refuel the aircraft. He told Florence to take the note to the cockpit, tell the captain, and tell him not to do anything stupid. Florence walked to the front of the plane, trying to keep her composure. She handed the note to Captain William Scott. Captain Scott read it. Then he radioed Seattle. "We have a hijack situation. The negotiation, a man in total control." On the ground, chaos erupted. The FBI was notified immediately. Northwest Orient executives scrambled to get the ransom together. The Seattle police were put on alert. But Cooper had thought of everything. He told the crew, "Fly in circles over Puget Sound. Don't land until the money and parachutes are ready. Keep the passengers calm. Tell them it's a minor mechanical issue." For over 2 hours, Flight 305 circled the skies above Seattle. The passengers had no idea what was happening. Meanwhile, the FBI worked frantically to assemble the ransom. $200,000 in $20 bills, 10,000 individual bills. Bank employees were called in. Each serial number was photographed and recorded. This wasn't just about the money. The FBI knew that if Cooper survived, those serial numbers would be his undoing. The parachutes were harder to find. The FBI contacted a local skydiving school. They grabbed 2 main parachutes and 2 reserve chutes. One of the reserve chutes was actually a dummy, a training chute that couldn't be opened. But no one told Cooper that. At 5:39 p.m., Flight 305 finally touched down at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. Cooper's instructions were clear. Park the plane in a remote area. Bring the money and parachutes to the rear stairs. Release the passengers. The FBI considered storming the plane. But Cooper had anticipated this. He warned that if he saw police, he would detonate the bomb. So, they waited. A single airline employee, carrying a heavy canvas bag filled with cash and 4 parachutes, approached the plane. Cooper inspected everything carefully. He opened the parachutes. He examined the harnesses. He rejected the dummy chute, not because he knew it was a dummy, but because he didn't like the way it looked. He kept the other 3. Then, he did something that surprised everyone. He released all 36 passengers. He let them walk off the plane unharmed. Most hijackers use hostages as leverage. Cooper didn't need them. He kept only the flight crew. Captain Scott, First Officer Bob Radizak, Flight Engineer Harold Anderson, and 1 flight attendant, Tina Mucklow. Then he gave his final instructions. Refuel the plane. We're flying to Mexico City. Flight plan south along airway Victor 23. Altitude 10,000 feet. Speed no more than 150 knots. Flaps set at 15 degrees. Landing gear down. Rear staircase unlocked and extended. The crew protested. Those settings would burn fuel too quickly. They'd never make it to Mexico. Cooper didn't care. Refuel the plane, he repeated calmly, and take off. At 7:40 p.m., Flight 305 lifted into the night sky once again, heading south into the storm, the jump into darkness and legend. The weather that night was brutal. Rain lashed the fuselage, winds howled. Visibility was near zero. The cloud ceiling was low and thick. Below, the landscape was pure wilderness, dense forests, jagged mountains, rivers cutting through dark valleys. This was the Pacific Northwest in late November. Cold, wet, unforgiving. Cooper ordered Tina Mucklow to go to the cockpit and stay there. He told the crew to turn off the cabin lights. He wanted to be alone. Tina hesitated. She later said Cooper was polite, even kind. He thanked her for her cooperation. He told her she'd done a good job. Then he closed the curtain between the cabin and the cockpit. The crew sat in silence, waiting. At approximately 8:05 p.m., a warning light illuminated in the cockpit. The rear staircase had been activated. Captain Scott radioed Cooper over the intercom. "Is there anything we can do for you?" No response. At 8:13 p.m., the crew felt a sudden change in air pressure. The plane's tail dipped slightly. Something had left the aircraft. Captain Scott tried the intercom again. "Mr. Cooper?" Silence. The crew knew. He was gone. Cooper had opened the rear air stair door, strapped $200,000 to his body, secured a parachute to his back, and jumped into a freezing rainstorm at 10,000 feet in total darkness over rugged wilderness. No experienced skydiver would attempt such a jump, but Cooper did. And then he vanished. The manhunt, searching for a ghost. When Flight 305 landed in Reno, Nevada, at 10:15 p.m., the FBI stormed the plane. The cabin was empty, the rear door was open, the staircase was down. Cooper was gone. But he left clues. He left behind his black clip-on tie. He left 2 of the parachutes. He left fingerprints on the seat and the bourbon glass. The FBI immediately launched one of the largest manhunts in American history. They estimated the jump zone based on flight path, speed, and the moment the crew felt the pressure change. The area was massive, somewhere along the border between Washington State and Oregon. Dense forest, mountainous terrain, rivers, lakes. Hundreds of agents scoured the wilderness. Military helicopters flew search patterns. Ground teams combed through the woods. Divers searched rivers and lakes. They found nothing. No parachute, no body, no money, no briefcase. It was as if Cooper had evaporated. The FBI quickly developed theories. Theory 1. Cooper died on impact. He jumped at night in a storm with no visibility. He wasn't wearing proper jump gear. He had no helmet, no goggles, no jumpsuit. He was wearing loafers and a business suit. The freezing rain would have disoriented him. The wind would have thrown him off course. He likely died when he hit the ground or drowned in a river. Theory 2. Cooper survived the jump, but died of exposure. Even if he landed safely, the wilderness was brutal. Temperatures were near freezing. He was soaking wet. He had no survival gear. Hypothermia would have killed him within hours. Theory 3. Cooper survived. This was the theory that kept the case alive. Maybe he was an experienced paratrooper. Maybe he had planned an escape route. Maybe he stashed supplies in the forest. Maybe he walked out, collected the money later, and disappeared into a new life. The FBI didn't know which theory was correct, so they kept searching. The money surfaces, a break in the case. For 9 years, the case went cold. Then, on February 10th, 1980, something extraordinary happened. A young boy named Brian Ingram was camping with his family along the Columbia River, near a place called Tanabar, about 9 miles downstream from where Cooper was believed to have jumped. Brian was digging in the sand when he found something strange. 3 bundles of rotting $20 bills, held together by rubber bands, $5,800. Brian's parents contacted the FBI. The serial numbers matched. This was Cooper's ransom money. But the discovery raised more questions than it answered. How did the money get there? The bills were badly decomposed, buried about 3 inches deep in the sand. Had they washed downstream from the jump zone? Had Cooper buried them? Had he died nearby and the river carried the money away from his body? And most importantly, where was the rest of the money? $194,200 was still missing. The FBI dug up the entire area. They brought in dredging equipment. They searched for miles up and down the river. They found nothing else. To this day, not a single additional bill from the ransom has ever surfaced. Not in circulation, not in a bank, not in a pawn shop, nowhere. That's almost impossible. If Cooper survived and spent the money, some of those bills should have appeared, but they didn't. Which means either Cooper died and the money is still hidden, or he survived and never spent it. Both possibilities are haunting. The suspects. 800 lives examined. Over the decades, the FBI investigated more than 800 suspects. Some were serious, others were absurd, but each one was examined. Let's talk about the most compelling ones. Richard Floyd McCoy Jr. In April 1972, just 5 months after the Cooper hijacking, a man named Richard McCoy hijacked a United Airlines flight using an almost identical method. He demanded $500,000 and 4 parachutes. He released the passengers. He jumped from the plane over Utah with the money. But unlike Cooper, McCoy was caught. 2 days later, the FBI arrested him. He was convicted and sent to prison. Many investigators believe McCoy was D.B. Cooper. The similarities were too precise. The tactics, the parachutes, the calm demeanor. But there were problems. McCoy was only 29 years old in 1971. Witnesses described Cooper as mid-40s. McCoy was also a devout Mormon and a family man. Would he really risk his life twice for money? McCoy escaped from prison in 1974 and was killed 3 months later in a shootout with the FBI. He never confessed to being Cooper. Kenneth Christensen. Kenneth Christensen was a former paratrooper and a Northwest Orient flight attendant. He knew the Boeing 727 inside and out. He had military jump training, and he fit the physical description. After 1971, Christensen suddenly had money. He bought a house, he paid off debts, but he lived modestly and never explained where the money came from. On his deathbed in 1994, Christensen reportedly told his brother, "There's something you should know, but I can't tell you." His brother later contacted the FBI, but there was no evidence, no DNA match, no confession. Robert Rackstraw. Robert Rackstraw was a former Army pilot, paratrooper, and explosives expert. He had a history of fraud and deception. He faked his own death once. He was accused of multiple crimes. Investigators found similarities between Rackstraw's handwriting and the hijacker's note. They found connections to the Pacific Northwest. They found military records proving he had jump training. But Rackstraw denied everything. He died in 2019, never charged. Dwayne Weber. In 1995, a man named Dwayne Weber died of kidney failure. On his deathbed, he whispered to his wife, "I am Dan Cooper." His wife, Jo Weber, didn't think much of it at first. But after he died, she found strange items in his belongings. Airline maps, Northwest Orient ticket stubs, an old parachute strap. She contacted the FBI. Dwayne Weber had a criminal history. He'd been in prison multiple times. He knew the Pacific Northwest, and his physical description matched. But the FBI found no solid evidence, and Jo Weber's story couldn't be verified. Barbara Dayton, formerly Bobby Dayton. One of the most unusual suspects was Barbara Dayton, a transgender woman who underwent gender transition surgery in 1969. Before her transition, she lived as Bobby Dayton, a pilot and skydiver in the Pacific Northwest. Friends claimed she hinted at being Cooper. She had the skills. She knew airplanes. She knew parachutes. But again, no evidence. The FBI investigated hundreds more. Pilots, veterans, criminals, drifters, con men. But none could be definitively proven. In 2016, the FBI officially suspended active investigation of the case. Not because it was solved, but because every lead had gone cold. The legend, how Cooper became a folk hero. Here's the strange thing about D.B. Cooper. He became a folk hero. In the 1970s, during a time of political distrust, economic uncertainty, and social upheaval, Cooper was seen as the ultimate rebel, a man who stood up to authority, a man who took what he wanted and disappeared without hurting anyone. Songs were written about him, books were published, movies were made, t-shirts were sold. There's a bar in Portland called the D.B. Cooper Lounge. Every year on November 24th, people gather to celebrate Cooper Day. He's been romanticized, mythologized, turned into a legend. But let's be clear. Cooper was a criminal. He terrorized a flight crew. He extorted money. He put lives at risk. And yet, the public loves him. Why? Because he represents something people want to believe in. That you can outsmart the system. That you can disappear. That you can become a mystery so perfect, it can never be solved. Cooper didn't rob a person. He robbed an airline, a corporation, the government. And in the minds of many, that made him a hero. The theories. Did he survive? So here's the ultimate question. Did D.B. Cooper survive? Let's examine both sides. Arguments that he died. 1. The jump conditions were suicidal. Night, storm, no visibility. Freezing rain, high winds, 10,000 feet. Over dense wilderness. Wearing a business suit and loafers. No helmet, no goggles, no survival gear. 2. He wasn't wearing the right parachute harness. He grabbed a training chute by mistake, which means one of his reserve chutes was useless. 3. No experienced skydiver would attempt that jump. The FBI consulted military paratroopers. They all said the same thing. He's dead. 4. The money never circulated. If he survived, why didn't he spend it? 5. No body, no grave, no deathbed confession. If he lived, someone would have talked by now. Arguments that he survived. 1. No body was ever found. The search was extensive. If he died, they should have found something. 2. The money at Tina Bar suggests he may have buried it and walked away. Why bury money unless you plan to come back for it? 3. He knew too much. The way he chose the flight path, the altitude, the speed, the parachute inspection. This wasn't luck. He had training. 4. He disappeared perfectly. No mistakes, no evidence, no trail. That takes skill. 5. People have survived worse. There are documented cases of skydivers surviving falls from extreme altitudes. The truth? We'll never know. The unanswered questions. Even after 50 years, the questions remain. Who was Dan Cooper? Was that even his real name? Why did he do it? Was it about the money, or was it about proving he could? Did he have help? Did someone pick him up after he landed? Did someone help him plan the jump? What happened to the rest of the money? $194,000 has never been found. Was the bomb real? No one ever checked. The briefcase disappeared with Cooper. And the biggest question of all, where is he now? Dead in a forest, buried by time and leaves, or alive somewhere, watching the world speculate, never saying a word? The final word. On November 24th, 1971, a man in a dark suit stepped onto a plane with a briefcase and a plan. 81 minutes later, he jumped into a storm and became a ghost. No arrests, no trial, no body, no answers. Just an empty seat, a pair of sunglasses, a clip-on tie, and a legend that refuses to die. D.B. Cooper may be the only criminal in American history who is celebrated for getting away. Because he didn't just hijack a plane, he hijacked our imagination. And 50 years later, we still can't let him go. This has been the Silent Files. Because some truths don't stay buried, they disappear.